The sky above Earth was calm that night, filled with quiet stars and soft darkness. People were sleeping, working, dreaming, living their normal lives. No one knew that something had already entered the planet's orbit. High above, beyond what the human eye could see, a massive object moved slowly through space. It did not burn like a meteor. It did not flash like a satellite. It simply appeared, silent, dark, and far too large to be natural. Inside control rooms around the world, alarms suddenly came alive, screens lit up with unknown signals. Scientists stared in confusion as data made no sense. It just appeared, one operator whispered. No entry point, no speed detection. Nothing. Within minutes, governments were alerted. Military bases activated emergency protocols. Fighter jets were prepared, missiles were armed. Satellites locked onto the object. People on Earth still had no idea. But above them, fear had already begun. The object stopped moving. It stayed perfectly still above the planet. As if it was watching, no attack came, no signal was sent. No message was received. That silence made everything worse. Leaders expected war. They waited for destruction. But nothing happened. Then suddenly, something changed. A small part of the object opened, not like a weapon, not like a machine, but like something alive from it. A single pod slowly detached. It began to fall toward Earth.
The data is inconsistent.
At first, it looked harmless, too small to be a bomb, too quiet to be dangerous, but no one trusted it. Military forces tracked its path. They calculated the landing point. A remote desert area, far from cities within minutes. Soldiers surrounded the location. Tanks rolled into position. Helicopters hovered above. Snipers aimed, waiting for orders. The pod entered the atmosphere. But it did not burn. It did not break apart. It slowed down on its own, gently, carefully, like something controlled its fall. Then it landed. No explosion, no shockwave. Just a soft impact against the sand. The soldiers waited. No one moved. Every eye was fixed on the strange object. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a command was given. A small team moved forward, step by step, weapons ready. The pod was smooth and dark. No markings, no symbols. Nothing familiar. It looked simple, but also completely unknown. One soldier reached out slowly, his hand shaking slightly. Then the pod reacted. A thin line of light appeared across its surface. It spread slowly, like the pod was opening itself. The soldiers stepped back, aiming their weapons. Some shouted. Others held their breath. The pod opened. Inside, there was no weapon, no machine, no device. There was a child, small, thin, and completely still. His skin was pale with a faint blue glow. His eyes were closed. His body weak for a moment. No one spoke. No one understood what they were seeing. This is not possible, one soldier said softly. The child slowly opened his eyes. They glowed faintly in the darkness. He looked around, confused, scared, and silent. The soldiers did not lower their weapons. But something felt wrong. This was not an enemy. One soldier stepped forward. Different from the others, he lowered his gun slightly. The child looked directly at him, and in that moment, everything changed. Every machine around them suddenly shut down. Helicopters lost power and dropped slightly before stabilizing. Communication systems went silent. Weapons stopped working. Panic spread instantly. "Systems are down," someone shouted. "No signal, no control," another voice said. But the child did nothing. He simply stared at the soldier. Not with anger, not with fear, but with something deeper. Something no one could understand. The wind moved across the desert. The sky remained silent, and above them, the massive object still waited, watching. The universe had not sent soldiers. It had sent him. The desert was no longer silent. After the machines failed, fear spread quickly among the soldiers. No one understood what had just happened. The helicopters struggled to stay in the air. Some moved away, others landed fast to avoid crashing. Radios made only broken sounds, then nothing in the center of it all. The child remained still, sitting inside the open pod. Looking at the world for the first time, the soldiers kept their distance. Weapons pointed, but useless, eyes filled with doubt. "Do not touch it," a commander said, his voice tense. "We don't know what it is," but one man stepped forward anyway. The same soldier who had lowered his weapon before. His name was Daniel, and something inside him felt strange. Not fear, not anger, but something close to concern. The child looked at him again, those glowing eyes focused only on him. Daniel slowly knelt down, keeping his hands visible. Showing he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly, though he knew the child might not understand. The others watched in silence, ready to pull him back at any moment. The child blinked slowly. His breathing was weak, uneven. Like he had traveled a long way, then something unexpected happened. The child moved, very slowly. He lifted one hand. Not in defense, not in attack, but reaching out. Daniel hesitated for a second. Then he reached out too. Their hands almost touched. And suddenly, Daniel felt something. Not a shock, not pain, but a wave of images inside his mind. Stars, burning worlds, endless darkness. Strange shapes moving across space. Planets breaking apart, cities turning to dust. Daniel pulled his hand back quickly, breathing hard. What was that?" he whispered. The child lowered his hand. Looking weaker now, the connection ended. But the feeling remained. Back at the command center, systems slowly restarted. Screens flickered back to life, signals returned. But nothing was normal anymore. Within hours, the child was moved to a secure research facility. Far from the desert, hidden from the public. The world still did not know, but rumors had already begun. Inside the facility, scientists gathered around, watching every movement, recording every detail. The child was placed in a glass room, soft lights, controlled air. Constant monitoring. He did not resist. He did not speak, he only watched. Doctors tried to scan his body. But the results made no sense. His heart beat differently. His brain activity was unlike anything human. His cells were changing. "He's not stable," one scientist said. "It's like his body is still adapting," another shook his head. "Or transforming." Daniel stood outside the room, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the child. He could not forget what he saw. Those images, those broken worlds. "This is not random," he said quietly. "This child came from somewhere." And something followed. Hours passed. Then something changed again. The lights inside the room flickered. Not off, not on, but unstable. The child slowly stood up. His movements still weak, but more controlled now. Every person in the room froze. The child placed his hand on the glass wall. And for a second, the glass shimmered. Like reality itself was bending, alarms suddenly went off. "Energy spike detected," someone shouted. "It's coming from him," another said. Daniel stepped closer, ignoring orders to stay back. The child turned his head, looking directly at him again. And then, for the first time he spoke. His voice was soft, broken. Like he was learning how to use it. He paused, struggling. "They are coming." The room went completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke outside. Far beyond Earth, in the dark space between stars, something had already begun to move. The words stayed in the air long after the child spoke. "They are coming." No one in the room moved, even the alarms felt quieter. Like the world itself was listening, Daniel stared at the child. His mind racing, trying to understand. But deep inside, he already believed him, inside the control room. Voices returned, fast, sharp, filled with fear. "What does he mean? Who is coming? Is this a threat?" The commanders did not wait for answers. Orders were given immediately. "Lock the facility. Increase security. No one in or out without clearance, to them. The child was no longer just unknown. He was dangerous. Daniel stepped forward. He's not a weapon, he said. He's trying to warn us. Some looked at him with doubt. Others with anger. You don't know that, a senior officer replied. For all we know, this is part of their plan. Daniel clenched his fists. If it was a plan, we would already be dead. No one answered that. Inside the glass room, the child looked weaker again. Like speaking had taken too much from him, doctors rushed in carefully, monitoring his body, checking his signals. He's losing energy, one said. We don't understand how he's even alive. The child's eyes slowly moved toward Daniel again. Almost like he trusted him, Daniel stepped closer to the glass. Ignoring the tension around him, "What do you mean?" he asked softly. "Who is coming?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the child lifted his hand again, slow, shaking, but reaching. Daniel hesitated. He remembered the last time. The visions, the pain, but this time he did not pull back. He placed his hand against the glass, matching the child's position, the moment their hands aligned. It happened again, but stronger. Daniel's vision disappeared, replaced by something far worse, a sky filled with darkness. Not night, but something alive. Massive shapes moved through space, too large to understand, too many to count. Planets burned, stars went silent. Entire worlds vanished without a trace. Daniel saw beings, not like the child. Not like humans, cold, empty, without emotion. They did not attack with anger. They erased everything without feeling. Then he saw something else, a world like the child's. Bright, peaceful, full of life, and then gone, destroyed in seconds. Daniel gasped and pulled his hand back, falling to one knee, breathing hard. "It's real," he said, his voice shaking. "They destroy everything." The room filled with silence again. But this time, it was different. This was not confusion. This was fear. "What did you see?" a scientist asked carefully. Daniel looked up slowly. "They don't invade. They erase." Before anyone could respond, an alarm louder than before filled the entire facility, not from inside, from space. "All stations report," a voice shouted through the system. "Unknown objects detected at long range." "How many?" someone asked. There was a pause, then the answer came. "Too many to count." Every screen in the control room lit up, showing deep space scans, small signals at first. Then more, then thousands moving together, heading in one direction, Earth. Panic spread instantly. "That's not possible. They're too far." "No. They're moving too fast." Daniel turned back toward the child, his heart pounding. "You knew," he said. "You saw this before." The child said nothing, but his eyes showed the truth. He had seen it all outside the facility. The world was still calm, people still living their normal lives. But above them, something massive was coming closer. And for the first time in human history, Earth was not preparing for war. It was preparing for something far worse. Part 4. The truth. The facility no longer felt like a place of control. It felt like a place waiting for something it could not stop. Screens across the command room showed the same thing, endless signals moving through space, getting closer with every second. No one spoke with confidence anymore. Every voice carried fear. Daniel stood near the glass room, watching the child carefully. "You knew this would happen," he said quietly. "Tell us why." Inside the room, the child sat on the floor, his small body still weak. But his eyes were different now. There was no confusion in them anymore. Only memory. The lights flickered softly again. Not violently like before, but gently. Like something was waking up. The child slowly stood, his movements more stable than before. Scientists stepped back, unsure. Guards raised their weapons again, even though they knew it would not help. The child placed his hand on the glass once more. Looking directly at Daniel this time, Daniel did not hesitate. He stepped forward and placed his hand against the same spot. The moment they connected, everything changed. Daniel was no longer in the room. He was somewhere else, a different world. He stood on a surface that was not Earth. The sky above him glowed with soft colors, strange structures rose in the distance. Smooth and shining, this place felt alive, peaceful. Nothing like the destruction he saw before. Then he saw them, beings like the child. Tall, thin, glowing faintly, moving calmly, working together. There was no fear here, no war, only quiet understanding. They were his people, Daniel whispered to himself. The vision moved forward. Suddenly, the sky changed. The light faded, darkness began to spread. The same darkness Daniel had seen before. Massive shapes appeared above the world. Silent, unstoppable, the peaceful beings looked up. Not with panic, but with sadness. Like they already knew the end. Then the destruction began. Not explosions, not fire, just disappearance. Buildings vanished. Land broke apart. Life faded away. Daniel tried to move, tried to help. But he was only watching. Then he saw something else. A group of those beings gathered together, standing around something small, a pod. The same kind that had landed on Earth. Inside it was the child. He looked even smaller, even weaker. The beings placed their hands around the pod. A soft light surrounded it. They were not preparing for war. They were sending him away. A final choice, a final hope. The vision shifted again. Daniel felt something deeper this time. Not images, but thoughts, the child's thoughts. We could not fight them. We could not stop them. So we chose something else. The feeling grew stronger. We searched the stars. We watched many worlds. But one world was different. Images of Earth appeared. Humans helping each other, fighting, surviving, protecting. We saw strength, not in power, but in heart. Daniel's chest tightened. Understanding slowly forming. You chose us, he whispered. The answer came without words. Yes, the vision began to fade. But one final truth remained. I am not a weapon. I am not a soldier. A pause. I am the last chance. Daniel's eyes opened suddenly. He was back in the room, breathing hard. Everyone around him stared, waiting. What did you see? Someone asked. Daniel looked at the child, then back at the others. They didn't send an army, he said slowly. They sent him. Silence filled the room again. Not confusion this time, understanding and fear. Because far beyond Earth, the same darkness that destroyed an entire world was still coming, and now there was no doubt left. Humanity was next. The truth changed everything. The room felt smaller now. Like the walls could not hold what was coming. Daniel stood in silence after speaking. They sent him. No one argued this time. No one denied it, because deep down, they all understood. The screen still showed the same terrifying image. Thousands of signals moving closer, slow, steady, unstoppable. They will reach our system soon, a scientist said. Days. Maybe less. That was not enough time. Not for weapons, not for plans. The world was finally told. At first, people did not believe it. Then they saw the sky change. Strange lights far beyond the atmosphere. Something moving where nothing should be. Fear spread faster than anything before. Cities filled with panic. People tried to run. But there was nowhere to go. Some prayed, some prepared. Some gave up. Humanity had faced wars, disasters and loss, but never something like this. Inside the facility, pressure grew. We need a weapon, one commander said. If he has power, we use it. Daniel turned sharply. He is not a weapon. He is the only thing we have, the commander replied coldly. Silence followed. Both were right, and that was the problem. Inside the glass room, The child sat quietly, watching everything, listening. He understood more now. Not every word, but the feelings. Fear, anger, hope, human emotions surrounded him. And something inside him began to change. Doctors noticed it first. His energy levels are rising. His body is stabilizing. The child slowly stood again. This time without struggle, the lights in the room reacted softly. Not flickering wildly, but moving with him. Daniel stepped closer, ignoring the others. "You can feel it." "Can't you?" he said softly. "Our fear." The child looked at him, then slowly shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "Your strength." Daniel froze. "Strength," he repeated, unsure. The child nodded slightly. Outside, the world was still breaking under fear. But inside that room, something different was growing. The child lifted his hand, not toward the glass this time, but toward the air. For a moment. Nothing happened. Then suddenly, everyone in the room felt something. A strange calm, a quiet warmth, not forced, not controlled, but shared. Scientists looked at each other, confused. Guards lowered their weapons without realizing it. Daniel felt it clearly, like his thoughts were no longer alone. "What is this?" someone whispered. The child spoke slowly, still learning, still weak. "Together." The word was simple, but the meaning was not. Images appeared in their minds. Not as strong as before, but enough. Humans standing together, helping each other, fighting side by side. The same thing the child's people had seen, the reason they had chosen Earth. "You are not like them," the child said softly. "They destroy alone." A pause. "You survive together." The room fell silent again. But this silence felt different. It was not fear, it was realization. The enemy was stronger, faster, more advanced. But they were not united. Humans were. Alarms suddenly broke the moment. "Update from Space Command," a voice announced. All screens changed again. The signals were closer now, much closer. "They've entered the outer system." A wave of tension filled the room. Time was running out. Daniel looked back at the child. "Can you stop them?" he asked. The child did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked down at his own hands, small, fragile, then back at Daniel. "I don't know," he said honestly. That answer hit harder than any lie. But before fear could return, the child added something else. "But you can." The room went still. "Us?" Daniel asked. The child nodded. "Not alone," he said. "Never alone." For the first time since the arrival, hope appeared, small, uncertain, but real. And far beyond Earth, the darkness continued to move closer. But now humanity was no longer just waiting. It was beginning to stand together. The feeling of together did not fade. It stayed in the room like a quiet light. People still felt fear, but now something stood beside it. Focus, purpose. Daniel looked around. The same people who were arguing before were now thinking. Working, not perfectly, but together. The child stood in the center of the room, small, silent, but no longer weak. His presence felt different now, not fragile, but growing. "Tell us what to do," Daniel said, his voice calm but urgent. The child did not answer with words at first. Instead, he closed his eyes. The lights dimmed, screens flickered. But this time, nothing shut down, everything connected, across the room. Systems began to respond, not failing but syncing. Data moved faster, signals aligned, information became clear. "What is happening?" a technician whispered. Daniel watched closely. "He's not breaking our systems," he said. "He's helping them work together." The child opened his eyes again. "They are one," he said. "Their ships, their minds, their purpose." A pause. "You must be more." Outside, the world was changing. Governments stopped arguing, for the first time. Commands were shared, not fought over. Military forces across the planet began to coordinate. Not as separate nations, but as one defense. It was not perfect. But it was enough to begin. In space, the enemy fleet entered the inner system. Now they could be seen clearly, massive dark shapes. Blocking light, moving in silence, no signals, no messages, only movement. "They're here," a voice said quietly. Inside the facility, tension rose again. "Prepare all defenses. Launch everything we have." Missiles were armed. Satellites locked targets, ships prepared for impact. Daniel looked at the child. "This is it," he said. "No more time." The child nodded slowly. "I will help," he said. He stepped forward, past the glass. No one stopped him this time. There was no fear left of him, only trust. The moment he entered the main control area, everything changed again. Every screen lit up at once. Not with chaos, but clarity, enemy positions, movement patterns, weak points. "How is this possible?" someone asked. The child raised his hand. "I see them," he said, "not just their ships. Their system, their connection." Daniel felt it again, that link, but this time stronger. He was not alone in it, others felt it too. Soldiers, pilots, commanders, a shared awareness, not full control, but enough to act faster together. "Fire," the command was given. Earth's defenses launched, missiles streaked into space. Bright lines against the dark. They hit the enemy ships, explosions filled the void. But when the light faded, the ships were still there, barely damaged. "They're too strong," someone said. Fear tried to return. But the child stepped forward again. "Not strong," he said. "Connected." He closed his eyes once more, and this time he pushed further. The connection between humans grew stronger. Faster reactions, better aim, perfect timing. Attacks began to land in the same places. Again and again, the enemy ships started to react. Not with fear, but disruption. Their perfect system was breaking. "They're losing coordination," a scientist shouted. "It's working," Daniel watched in disbelief. "We're actually hitting them, for the first time." The enemy slowed, but the child's body began to shake. The effort was too much, his breathing became uneven. Daniel noticed immediately. "Stop," he said. "You're pushing too far." The child shook his head weakly. "Not enough," he whispered. Outside, more enemy ships moved forward. Endless, even as some fell, more replaced them inside. The connection started to flicker. The child dropped to one knee, the shared feeling weakened. "No," Daniel said, stepping forward. The child looked up at him, his glowing eyes fading slightly. "I can't hold it," he said. For a moment, everything stood on the edge. Victory felt close, but impossible at the same time. And as the enemy fleet continued to advance, one truth became clear: this power, this connection, was not enough, not yet. The connection was breaking, everyone could feel it. The shared awareness that had made them strong was fading. Slowly, like a light going out, inside the control room. Voices returned, confused, afraid. "We're losing sync. Targets are unstable." "They're pushing forward again," on the screens. The enemy fleet moved closer, endless, silent, unstoppable. Daniel dropped to his knees beside the child, catching him before he fell. "Hey, stay with me," he said. His voice tight with fear. The child's body felt lighter than before. Too light, his glowing eyes flickered weakly. "I tried," he whispered. "It's not enough." Daniel shook his head. "No, you did more than enough." Around them, people rushed, trying to regain control, trying to fight without the connection. But it was not the same without unity. Mistakes returned, timing broke, coordination failed. Missiles missed, defenses weakened. The enemy did not rush, they did not need to. They moved like a slow wave, certain. Daniel looked at the screens, then back at the child. "There has to be another way," he said. The child's breathing was shallow now, each breath slower than the last. "There is," he said softly. Daniel leaned closer. "What is it?" The child looked at him. Not as something different, but as something familiar. One mind, he said. Daniel frowned. We already tried that. The child shook his head slightly. Not many, he said. One. Daniel's heart sank. You mean you? The child did not answer, but his silence said enough. Outside. The first enemy ships reached the edge of Earth's orbit. Massive shadows covered parts of the planet. Blocking sunlight, panic spread across the world again. Inside the room, time felt like it was running out. You won't survive that, Daniel said. You can't hold that much power. The child looked at his own hands again. Small shaking. I was not sent to survive, he said quietly. Daniel felt something break inside him. No, he said firmly. That's not happening. The child looked back at him. You said I am one of you, he replied softly. Daniel froze. Those words came back to him. From earlier, from a moment that now felt far away. Yes, Daniel said. You are. The child gave a small, weak nod. Then let me choose. Silence filled the room again. No one argued this time. No one gave orders, because deep down, they all knew. This was the only chance. The child slowly stood. His strength fading, but his will clear. The lights around him began to glow brighter, not flickering, but steady. A calm energy filled the space. Daniel stepped back slowly. His hands clenched, but he did not stop him. Do it, he said quietly. The child closed his eyes, and then everything connected again. But this time, it was different, stronger, deeper, wider. Not just the room, not just the planet. Everything, every signal, every system, every mind willing to fight. Linked through one point him on the screens. Something incredible happened. The enemy ships stopped. Not moving forward, not attacking, just still. They're frozen, someone whispered. No, another said. They're being controlled. The child's power reached into the fleet, breaking their perfect connection. Turning their unity against them, ships began to collide. Systems failed, formation collapsed. For the first time, the enemy was losing. But inside the room, the child began to fall. Daniel rushed forward, catching him again. Stay with me, he said. The child's eyes opened slowly, barely glowing now. It's ending, he whispered, on the screens. The last of the enemy ships went dark, their signals fading one by one. Until there was nothing left, silence returned to space. The threat was gone, Earth was safe, but the child's body went completely still. Hey, Daniel said, his voice breaking. Hey. Stay with me, for a long moment. Nothing happened, then a small breath. The child's eyes opened again. But something had changed, the glow was gone. The strange energy was gone, he looked. Normal human, Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. You're still here, he said softly. The child looked at him, confused but alive. Yes, he said quietly around them. People stared in disbelief. The war was over. But something else had begun. Daniel helped the child stand. No longer as something unknown, but as someone who belonged. Above them, the sky was clear again. Silent, peaceful, and for the first time, humanity understood something important. They were never chosen because they were the strongest. They were chosen because they stood together. And in the end, the universe did not send soldiers. It sent something far more powerful, hope.